made with spoken. Believe and Live, Resonant Earth Prelude by Cody Sisco. Digital narration, performed by multiple digital voices. For all the survivors. 30th of September, 1971. Semiautonomous California. Mía pulled the soft duvet tight around her hips and stretched her legs toward Claudio, luxuriating. She'd never visited Carmichael before, where Semiautonomous California's elites and their coterie, the Sika set, vacationed. But it was exactly what she needed. Country luxury. She and Claudio could walk along the river that ran next to the Carmichael Inn, relax all day at the spa, or laze in bed, completely free from obligations and far from the endless political wrangling in Oakland and Bayshore. She snuggled her feet in his direction. But his side of the bed was empty and cold. Mía raised her head and opened her eyes. The clock on the bedside table blinked 3:22. The power must have gone out. It couldn't be later than 7 or 8, judging by sunlight on the white synth silk drapes. The duvet was neatly folded over on his side, as it usually was when he rose early. He was always careful to avoid waking her. She propped herself up on her elbows and looked at the open bathroom door and the vacant space beyond it. The quiet room unnerved her. She tried to shrug it off. It must be earlier than she thought. Living in fog-blighted Oakland and Bayshore, she wasn't used to bright sun in the morning. Maybe he'd gone out for a jog, although last night they'd shared an entire bottle of mineral-tinged Cote Catalan at Enoteca Amori. Mía felt a hint of a hangover, a slight sluggishness that would require a hot shower to wash away. Mía replayed the previous evening in her mind. Afternoon sweets in a gelato shop where a smiling boy had made them giggle, a pre-dinner stroll along the Sika North Fork River, amaranth-infused bourbon cocktails in the Golden Granite Saloon, the Enoteca's savory courses of marinated onions and peppers, roast duck and braised lamb, all of it followed by real heritage-grown coffee and lavender panna cotta. And then, of course, lovemaking. She smiled and pushed back the covers, remembering the passion in Claudio's eyes, how desperately he'd pressed himself against her. 3 years into their relationship, now newlywed, and still the spark between them sizzled. Thank the laws they hadn't waited months to honeymoon on Barbados and had opted instead to spend some time in Carmichael. Claudio's legal summit had gone well, and now that she'd joined him here, they could both relax for a few days. Mía wished he'd stayed in bed, but maybe he'd planned all along to let her sleep in. The exhaustion she felt from the last 6 months campaigning for Governor-in-Chief Jerry Brown's re-election would take more than a few days to make good. Mía needed a break before the campaign's finale, and the honeymoon would be a good start. A siren sounded from far away. It repeated twice, then dissolved in a jarring pop and rumble. Mía slipped from the covers and dressed, putting on loose, flowing pants and an emerald button-up blouse. She searched around for her sandals, half expecting to come across a note in Claudio's careful, academy-trained handwriting explaining that he'd gone for bagels, a newspaper, or a real coffee in the breakfast lounge downstairs. She found her sandals poking out from under the bed and slipped them on, just as someone outside screamed. Her heart pounded. She rushed to the window and raised it, looking out from the second story. To the west, she could see the winding road leading over the ridge into town. But there was no sign of who had screamed. She heard the sound again, a ragged, terrified shout. She ran to the opposite window, the one facing the river that ran from the foothills. On the lawn leading down to the river, she saw a couple lying next to each other and staring up at the sky. Closer, next to the dirt track that ran alongside the inn, she spotted Claudio. He was wearing his morning robe, prone and spread-eagled on his back like he was making snow angels. A man stood over him. Her breath caught in her throat. He was holding a shockstick. The man standing over Claudio wore chunky black body armor, insect-like. The tip of the shockstick glowed ripe strawberry red. Mía yelled, "Stop!" The man whipped his head toward the open window and met her gaze. His eyes were dark matte and soulless. He tucked the shockstick into a holster and plucked a knife from his waistband, crouched, and held it to Claudio's neck. The man said,
"Is she with you?"
He looked up at Mía and yelled,
"Step away from the window."
Mia's hands jumped to her throat. She screamed.
"What are you doing?"
The man didn't move. The knife remained poised as seconds cruelly ticked by. They were the only 3 people in the universe, the knife man, Claudio, and Mía. Claudio appealed to her with his eyes. What were they saying? Help? Run? His straining neck pushed dangerously against the blade's edge. Mía had to get help, someone calm who could defuse the situation. She tore her gaze away and loped to the door. She should have never looked away. She sprinted down the empty hallway to the carpeted grand staircase, careening down it, her organs vibrating with every step. The inn's reception area was empty. No one sat in the high-backed chairs next to the fireplace. No one stood behind the black marble reception counter. She raced to the counter, picked up the phone, and dialed 112 to connect with the police. After a moment, she realized there was no signal. The phone was dead. When she rounded the counter to try another phone, she nearly tripped over a man lying prone on the carpet, eyes open to the ceiling, red foam coating his lips. 3 bodies lay slumped beyond the doorway to the inn manager's office. She gasped, looked around, hesitated. She didn't know what to do. It was unreal, like stories from back in time when murder had been as common as horse-drawn carriages. Nowadays, extreme violence only happened in far-off places like the Republic of Texas. Fury squeezed her stomach into a tight ball and she ran for the exit. Her gaze skated across chairs, tables, looking for a weapon. She sighted a paperweight as big as her hand and picked it up. Fossilized wood in a dense, translucent coating. Heavy. She tightened her grip on the paperweight, a primitive tool for a primitive situation, and ran for the door and onto the back lawn. Trees at the river's edge swayed their limbs in the breeze. Claudio lay just as before, but the man in black armor was gone. Mía rushed forward. Claudio's neck was intact, but there was red foam on his lips and his eyes were glassed over. As Mia's knees weakened and she opened her mouth to scream, a hand whipped from behind and covered her mouth. She was encircled, her arms pinned, one hand still clutching the paperweight. A cloth pressed against her lips and vapors stung her lungs. Her thoughts slowed, her muscles relaxed involuntarily, and she felt a sudden calm. She felt as close to death as she ever had. The man could snap her neck or slit her throat. Through blurred vision and sluggish thoughts, she noticed the man was trying to unhook something from his belt.
"You're not supposed to be here. That's okay. I'll help you cross over,"
he said.
"You must be one of the blessed."
Beneath drooping eyelids, she saw his right hand fumble with his shockstick. They were supposed to be non-lethal. How could he have killed Claudio and the others with it? Claudio. Her breath hitched, and another dose of sedative permeated her lungs. Almost there. Soon she would meet her husband in black eternity. No. Claudio would tell her to fight. He must have tried and failed. She couldn't give up if he had sacrificed his life saving hers. Mía held her breath against the mind-fogging drug and clung to consciousness, looking around for something to pin her to the waking world. On the ground, a small sign in hand-painted cursive letters read, "Believe and live." Mía gripped the paperweight tighter, twisted around, and jammed it into the crook of her attacker's elbow. His hold on her slipped. The shockstick tumbled to the ground. She turned fully around to look him in the face. Wide mouth, a small nose, features like slimy, half-cooked chicken. She raised the fossil again, this time ramming it into his nose. Blood sprayed, splattering across her blouse. A satisfied snarl pulled Mia's lips back. The man crouched and grabbed the shockstick. Mía kicked his shoulder, knocking him over, but now he had his weapon. She turned and lumbered across the lawn. Mía set her sights on a cluster of oak trees. If she could make it to the ridge, Carmichael's houses and small downtown lay just beyond. Her legs felt sluggish. Her arms hung limply. 100 strides later, she stole a glance behind her. The man paced, glancing between Mía and the river, seeming torn about whether to follow her, cursing to himself something about the word time. He checked his watch and spoke to it, though she couldn't make out the words. Then, cupping a hand over his broken nose, he stalked toward a hoverboat moored at the dock. She started stumbling forward again. At the crest of the ridge, she stopped, gasping at the scene below her. The skies were cloudy with smoke, and an oddly bright white fog seemed to be moving through the town in clumps, forming almost as fast as the breeze thinned it. What the thinned-out fog revealed left her gaping. 3 separate conflagrations were roaring through houses and shops. Another fire was burning elm trees lining the town square. The elms blazed like giant torches. One fire ripped through a block of bars, restaurants, and shops where she and Claudio had walked just last night. Homes on fire on the other side of the low-rise town sent black smoke billowing up, blending with haze from the other fires, rising toward one inky confluence. Why couldn't she hear any sirens? Why wasn't anyone coming to put out the fires? The answer lay at the foot of the hill. A small blaze engulfed a fire truck, split in two like a broken toy. The main cabin rested on its side 50 meters from the carriage, but there were no other vehicles on the street. No sign of what had caused the accident. Oh, laws, the parade! Today was repetition day. The townspeople would have gathered on Main Street. Could a bomb have gone off? But then there would be survivors, people helping the injured. There should be scores of police investigating, helping people, but she saw none. Where was everyone? The tragedy, she realized, went far beyond her own horribly painful slice of it. It was as if someone had torn the cover off a book, revealing a different image and a tale much darker than the one that had been promised. No one was safe, she realized. After this day, how could anyone in Sika feel safe again? The fires seemed to be gaining strength. Smoke billowed upward. An engine fired up behind her. The black-clad man was piloting a boat down the river toward her.
Loss.
She cursed. Find someone in town. There must be someone somewhere who could help her. Mía stumbled down the hill. Safety in numbers, shelter, weapons, survive. These thoughts filled her head and crowded out everything else. The houses across the road were Southern reconstruction, symmetrical with white siding and dark gray windows. The effect made them look like pale faces, eyes wide and shocked by the death and conflagrations on their doorsteps. Drapes twitched in the ground floor window of one of the houses. Mía moved closer, hobbling. A boy, maybe 7 years old, watched her approach from behind the glass. It was the same boy she and Claudio had smiled at in the gelato shop. He left the window, and a moment later the front door opened. A refuge. Mía started to cross the street. Something beeped 3 times, a sound similar to a mesh feed notification, but not quite the same. The boy's mouth opened to call to her. The facade of the building bulged, then shattered. An explosion blossomed into flame, knocking Mía 10 meters back onto the grass. Alive. But the boy was gone. The house blazed, adding its smoke to the crowded sky. Mía closed her eyes to blot out the image of the burning rubble in front of her. A middle-aged woman ran out from a neighboring yard, panicked. Her dress was on fire. She tried batting it out, but the wind whipped it away from her grasp. Flames climbed up the fabric as she struggled in the middle of the street. A car rumbled to life. It accelerated, aiming straight for the woman.
Run!
Mía yelled. The woman stopped and turned. Mía didn't have time to look away. The car slammed into the woman, knocking her back. The tires rolled over her, and the car continued down the street before slowing again, returning to its slumber. The woman's body seemed to still be moving, an illusion, just the wind snapping at her dress, Mía realized. She tried to make sense of what was going on. The town itself had been turned into a weapon, houses transformed into explosives, self-driving cars into killing machines. Fear pushed Mía to move. She took a step forward and a car's engine started. She sprinted toward the burning house as best a hobbling person could. The death car rumbled and started to gun for her in reverse. But she was already pushing past a leaning fence into the burnt woman's yard. The car didn't follow. Though it could kill, it couldn't betray its programming and leave the street. She hoped. In the backyard, Mía found a man's body lying face down at the foot of a screened-in porch. She knew the same red foam would be on his lips if she turned him over. A black box lay on the ground next to him. She'd seen one like it before, attached to the murderous man's shockstick. A shiny silver connector protruded from one side, and on the opposite face, in platinum-embossed characters, were the words, Quantum Trigger X0376. Gadgets, that was his thing. The cars, explosives, Dirac shock sticks, these black cube things. He was killing everyone with tech. The knife on Claudio's neck had just been for show, a trick to coax her out of the inn. Could one man have done this on his own? Or were madmen patrolling the streets with shock sticks, rounding up survivors for slaughter? Mia's breath hitched and she dropped to a crouch, hugging her legs with her arms. Next to the dead man, on another scrap of cardboard, were the same hand-painted letters that she'd seen near Claudio. Believe and live. What kind of monster forced such an absurd message on his victims as he killed them? What kind of madness was this? Could this day be real? Could it be a dream? What if, instead, she had lost her mind? Could insanity feel this tangible, this awful? A searing ember landed on the back of her hand and she snapped back to reality. The fire at the house next door was growing louder, hotter, throwing parts of itself to the wind like deadly spores. She wasn't safe here, but where would she be safe? Who knew what other surprises were hidden throughout Carmichael? The campaign part of Mia's mind switched on. She took in her surroundings, seeing only obstacles, threats, and her path forward. Mía pushed on her thighs to raise herself up, tottering toward a woodpile stacked against a 2-meter-high wooden fence. Finding depths of strength she would have thought superhuman just an hour ago, she clambered up the pile, hoisted herself over the top of the fence, and dropped to her feet on the other side. Leaning against the fence, she wished for a few moments of rest. She staggered forward instead. There were no bodies in this yard. Good. Believe and live. What did that mean? It was useless to wonder. Ask a viper why it hunts and you'll receive an answer of fangs. You're not supposed to be here, he'd said. Well, she was here, and damned if she wasn't going to stop wondering and start fixing. Mía, the anomaly. Mía, the woman who would stop him somehow. She stepped around a kiddie pool and a child's swing set in the yard. Movement from inside the house caught her gaze. A little boy with curly black hair, perhaps 4 years old, pounded on a sliding glass door. His eyes were wide with fear. Mía held up her palms and shouted through the glass,
Don't touch anything. It's not safe.
The boy nodded.
I know.
What's your name?
Victor Eastmore?
Victor stared at the woman. Her clothing was spattered with red and blackened at the edges. She told him not to touch anything, but he'd already been warned by his dreams. His head felt like a balloon about to pop. The feeling was frightening. Too much. He wanted to make it stop. He began to slap the glass again.
Calm down, please. Stop banging.
The woman yelled through the door.
You'll get hurt.
He stopped slapping and pressed his face into the glass. Its coolness felt soothing. Outside, the woman knelt and inspected the underside of the wooden steps. Victor knew what she would find, a rope of shiny gray material attached to a small black box. He'd tried to point out the object to his parents, but his words got mixed up, and they said they wouldn't listen to more nonsense about his dreams.
But they're coming true.
He'd told them. The woman looked up.
You need to stay inside. Don't try to open this door. Can you do that?
Victor nodded, feeling tears spill onto his cheeks. He wanted his ma. He wanted her to hug him, to stroke his hair, and most of all, to believe him.
Have you seen my mother?
He asked. The woman frowned. He saw that she was crying too. Victor put his palm on the glass.
My grandpa Jeff says it's okay to be sad sometimes. But what if I'm sad all the time? What if the man from Nightmare Land got my ma?
The woman gently placed her palm on the opposite side of the glass from his. It was bigger and needed soapy, washy time.
Can you go hide in your room?
She asked. He said,
I know how to open the doors that Ma and Fa think are too big for me.
That's very clever. Go to your room, Victor. Don't leave for anything. No matter what you hear, stay there until someone comes to get you.
Ma took her bike to the market. My fa is away.
I'll look for her. Promise you'll hide and not go anywhere?
Is the man from Nightmare Land coming back?
Victor asked. The woman blinked at him.
Only if he sees you. Can you stay out of sight?
Victor whispered.
I'll tell you a secret.
What?
She asked.
I can't hear you.
She tapped lightly on the glass. Victor spoke louder.
His name is Samuel Miller.
Her eyes went wide.
Samuel Miller. You're sure?
Victor nodded.
He works at my school.
Stay inside. I'll bring help.
Victor nodded again, sadly. He knew she would bring help, but it was the kind of help that was good and bad at the same time, and it was already too late. He hadn't done enough to warn his ma and fa. He ran to the stairs, bounded up them like a monkey on all fours, and hid in his room, listening to the sounds of Carmichael falling to pieces, knowing he shared some of the blame.
Mía watched the Eastmore boy climb the stairs in what must be his family's summer house, though even for a second home it seemed too plain and modest for one of the richest families in semi-autonomous California, if not the entire American Union. She wondered why his parents had left him alone. He acted eerily older than he appeared to be and seemed to know far more than a child should, like the attacker's name. Mía repeated it silently. Samuel Miller. Samuel Miller, I'm going to stop you. Then she left the boy to his hiding spot and went back out into the street. Of the many people she saw lying on the pavement, most were still breathing. She had to do something, tell someone, get help. If the man didn't find them first, the cars would run them down when they moved. The mesh tied all of semi-autonomous California together. Carmichael was only a 2-hour train ride from the capital. How could the town's citizens be left to fend for themselves? Why weren't people coming to help them? Surely they'd seen the smoke. Maybe help had come, and they'd succumb to the same traps as the firemen. Or maybe the man in black armor. Samuel had sent authorities on a wild goose chase in the opposite direction. Whatever the case, she had to sound the alarm. As she darted across the street, the whir of a car's engine sounded, coming to life when it sensed her movement. Mía hurried on, making it to the safety of a hedged-in yard. She traversed another set of fences and backyards and found a narrow gravel lane. Beyond it, she saw a park with a bandstand and play areas for children. It should have been filled with life and laughter, but it was empty. What could possibly motivate someone to... Voices. Mía ducked behind a hedge. On the far side of the park, the black-clad man was pulling a woman across the green. Her hands were tied, her mouth gagged. He led her to the bandstand, his head swiveled, scanning his surroundings. Mía didn't dare move. Through the dry, unhealthy-looking foliage and twigs, she could see the scene unfolding, and her stomach sank. She was about to witness another murder. The man forced the young woman to her knees.
Believe and you'll live. I'll help you cross over.
His voice sounded earnest, frantic, like he wanted to convert this young woman to some religion of his own creation. If it was a religion, it was one that confused life and death, faith and fear. This world was somewhere else. Tears streamed down the young woman's face. Her white blouse, almost the same cut as Mía's emerald one, ruffled in the breeze. Her hair lifted, as if its reddish-blonde strands were appealing to him for mercy.
Believe in the other world, and you'll live on there.
He lifted a shockstick and pressed it to her head. The black cube capping the shockstick emitted a click. Mía screamed.
Samuel, stop!
She rushed into the open. He jumped and spun around. The shockstick stopped clicking.
Go away. She can't cross over while you watch. You'll kill her.
Please, let her go.
Stop interfering. It's not my choice. This world is hell. The dream people won't stay quiet. I'm helping half-souls cross over to the better world.
He pulled a silver sphere from his pocket and threw it at Mía's feet. Thick smoke billowed around her knees, rising, jetting into the air. Sleeping gas, the kind riot police in San Francisco used to derail protests. Mía ran, trying to outpace the smoke. Click, click. She glanced back and saw the shockstick fire. Dirac waves pulsed from its tip, momentary shimmers in the air that looked like water moving across a pane of glass. The young woman collapsed, red foam leaking from her mouth.
Live free,
Samuel said softly. Then he looked at the box on his shockstick. His face scrunched, and he howled.
You did this. You killed her.
Mía fled through the haze of gas and stumbled into a car, a Sika Seabreeze. She ducked inside and slammed the door shut just as the gas cloud overtook the vehicle. Frantically, she searched the dash for air vents to close them, when, with a violent lurch, the car accelerated down the street. She hadn't touched anything.
No, stop.
She screamed. The car ignored her command. The steering disc accepted no input. She tried to open the doors. Locked. Behind her, another car followed with the black-clad man inside, watching her and fiddling with a device, no doubt controlling her car remotely. Painful heat rose in Mia's throat. Panic trembled in her hands as a parade of houses whisked by. Her car whizzed away from the center of town to a stretch of road that hewed to the riverbank. The Carmichael Inn squatted 100 meters ahead on the left. The river arced around the inn, revealing the broad lawn between it and the river. Mía saw a dark spot and realized with a sob that it was Claudio's body, still where she'd left it on the lawn. A message flashed on the dashboard. Warning, safe mode disengaged. The road turned. The car did not. Mía slipped instinctively into the footwell. The car fell, slammed into earth on one side, and flipped. Steel crunched and windows shattered. Water rushed in, soaking her skin and clothes. The vehicle lurched, scraped along the bottom of the river, came to rest, then broke free again. Floating in a jostling blind murk, she flailed until she found her footing. She found a pocket of air and coughed up water. She was beyond thought. Every corner of her mind screamed, breathe, find air, and keep it. The submerged car bumped into a sandbar and stopped. Mía slipped under the waterline. Jagged glass slashed her hands and snagged her clothing as she pulled herself out of the car through a broken window. Tensing her limbs, she pushed off the car's side like a frog as it suddenly moved on, scraping downstream. At the surface, Mía gasped and wiped her eyes. She spotted a tree. Its roots played in the water at the river's edge like fingers. She pulled with one arm and then another, drifting farther downstream, but not making much progress toward the bank. She'd never been a good swimmer. The river had widened and the current was steady. She swept by the tree, missing her target. She floated on, uncertain if she would have the strength to pull herself from the water. A bend in the river approached, and she swam toward it. She found herself on a shallow, rocky stretch 1/2 meter deep. She trudged forward and collapsed onto land, sobbing. Her entire body shook. She'd never imagined it was possible to feel this afraid and in pain. The sound of a motor jerked her head up. The man was driving down the road toward her, 100 meters upstream. Mía jumped in the water and let the river carry her away, kicking and paddling to stay afloat. The black-clad man's words echoed in her mind. Believe and live. She would bring rescue. The police would lock him up, study his defects, and guard themselves against broken people like him. She would marshal all the resources in Sika to put the man under a microscope and pry him apart, to find out exactly what part of his heart had turned black, what piece of his brain corrupted him. She would uncover what could turn a man into such a monster. Some ways downstream, Mía spotted a fisherman. She swam to him, and he pulled her onto his boat. She told him what was happening in Carmichael, and when they docked, she told a Sika militia unit. That evening, they took back the town, but even when the horror ended, Mía told anyone who would listen what had happened. Her prior life was gone, erased. She existed only for the purpose of telling her story and making sure the monstrosities that happened in Carmichael never happened again. And so, months later, she made her case for the Classification Commission and became its leader.
A few hours after the fisherman pulled Mía from the water, Victor finally left his hiding spot and peeked out the window. Masses of people in uniforms were going door to door. He waved when one of them looked up at him. A woman in a light blue uniform spent a half hour under Victor's watchful gaze fiddling with the object under the porch. When she finally removed it, Victor was reunited with his ma on the front lawn. The look on her face was dazed. She said the smoke had made her sleepy, so sleepy that she had had to take a nap on the bicycle trail. He said that was silly, but he didn't laugh. Fa was on his way home from New Venice, she told him. Then she called Grandpa Jeff. Victor could hear his voice on the sono feed. He said it would be all right. He would take care of everything, and they should go to Oakland and Bay Shore and live in his mansion. As they sat together on the lawn, Victor smelled smoke in his mother's hair and listened to his grandpa's voice on the feed, feeling like one of the paper boats his class had sailed on the lake, so wobbly that they eventually filled with water and disappeared. What if one day he himself sank, pushed under by the same dark force that had found him in Carmichael today?
Epilogue.
I couldn't help myself. I kept returning to Carmichael. First to contribute to the timeline reconstruction for the trial, and then for the first anniversary, and then for the rebuilding, and then again by myself, and again. I retrace my footsteps. I can't explain why. I think about how differently that day could have gone. If the boy hadn't blown up, if I'd managed to save Claudio, if I had been the one who helped people in the town cross over. For years afterward, pieces of me kept coming loose, and I replaced them with pieces of Carmichael. It wasn't just to connect to the other victims and their lives. I know that's what I said at the time, but I have pieces of the monster inside me, too. Maybe it was monstrous of me to break into the evidence locker at the courthouse, but reading Samuel's carefully worded thesis opened my eyes to what we needed to do. The Classification Commission's work is vital, and we must support it. After all, anyone could be the next monster.
From Interview with Mía Barrias, 5 years after Carmichael, 1983.
Professional audiobooks in a click.
Spoken.